For those of you following along with my digital drawing series, this is going to be our Art Cave lesson number 3. In our first lesson, we started out with complete blackness and we started drawing in the light and shadow to create the wall of a cave. In the second lesson, we took that a step further and we decorated our cave wall with our own symbolic art. In the final step here, we're going to actually start using some reference imagery. So those first two, they were 100% from our imagination. Now we're going to be looking at a real world example of a cave and taking all of those techniques and using that same process to try and create a rendition of this cave. So why don't we get started? So here is the reference photo that I've got for us. It's got a lot of the things that we came up with out of our imagination. I'll probably start by drawing the brightest light here at the mouth of the cave, at the entrance. And that'll be a good reference for light and dark. And I can find places where there are gradual changes, and I can also find hard edges where the shadows drop off very sharp and jagged. And it's great that we've got this little dog in here as a size reference so we can see the size of these stones on the ground. And we can see that the only little piece of color that we're finding is right here on the floor and out there at the mouth of the cave. So we're seeing more color in those brighter areas, absence of color. So light is the entire rainbow. We've got all of those colors coming in through the cave. So I can go ahead and get my paint bucket and I can fill in. So we start out with complete black. This is fun. It's fun to kind of change what we usually do. And we're starting with dark, and we're actually going to be drawing the light. It's good for us to be thinking about light and dark. So I'm going to make sure I've got this reference up to the side of me so I can be checking it, and I'll bring it in from time to time. Okay. So already right here at the mouth of the cave, it's almost pure white light. And it kind of snakes its way in. I can see this is the basic shape of the shadows on the edge. So I'm actually drawing the light. So this is the shape of the light. And I'm seeing this main focused area, and then it kind of starts trailing off into the distance. And I can just keep, oops, I can undo and fix things that kind of broke my illusion there. This tablet is pressure sensitive, so even the opacity is affected by the pressure on this particular brush. And so it actually, in this photo, the way the composition is, it actually trails off into the dark like the texture of this brush, but we might have to try some different brushes. I'm going with this one just because it's nice and rough and we get that instant texture. So let's make sure I'm paying attention to my reference. There's kind of a bit of a wall that comes down, and I should go ahead and really observe very closely. There's some kind of light that spills out to the side here that's really cool. Okay, now we can start thinking about these faces, and we can get the basic size and scale here. This is an interesting face here, and I like the angle. I want to make sure I get that angle before it kind of bulges out again and falling off into the shadow. Kind of meets up at the mouth. So that is about as high as it goes in my reference. And everything on this side, this is going to be super faint in here. You know, there's going to be some indication of these shapes, and we can put them in brighter, and then we can shade them out, and so that we can really get the right form. And this, we need to make this really gradual. So as it is now, that's my only place with the full brightness. But as we can see in our reference, the full brightness is actually coming all the way back here. So let's bring this in again. So this bright light, nothing's blocking it, so it's shining all the way in. You can see this. Everything in here, it's just lost in the blackness. We don't know what is going on in there. But then the light is catching on this face, and we've got some really great detail to capture there. Another way to think about this process is everything's out of focus, but you want to make sure that everything is in the right place, and then we slowly bring everything into focus. I'm going to be coming back over this to shade everything so it's okay. I just want to make sure I get the general values right. Set the light is coming in here. It's pretty bright. Okay. Don't want to lose this face here, and they actually kind of meet up and join into one face. So that's pretty neat too. And then the overall flow is inward down there. Kind of folds in. Okay, some of these details are going to end up being a lot smaller. And I'm just putting a few indications to remind ourselves what we want to end up with. So I advise a very loose process where you can allow yourself to make mistakes and learn as you go. Okay, I think that's starting to feel right. It's actually starting to feel like it has a glow to it, and that's kind of what we're going for. And you can keep coming in, and as you figure out the forms, you're allowing yourself to put in tighter details. Okay, so just to speed things up, I'm going to bring my opacity down, and we want to be really gentle with these shadows, but we're going to get a lot of mileage out of the details that we can put in. I like to change the angle of my brush strokes when I'm doing my textures and shadows. I want to let these be loose for now, at least. And I want to really define the top of this. There's actually light that spills up. Ooh, let's not miss that. Some of it actually spills upward here, as if the sun was setting and it's catching up at the top. But again, it's pretty subtle. Okay, I would do continual passes, making your brush size smaller and smaller, and keep observing and keep putting in more details. Put in those details that you don't want to miss. So even in this brightest area, we're actually, we're losing a lot of the. I'm going to 100% opacity and keep it nice and small, and start putting in some of these details. And another thing that we can be observant of is that there's going to be a greater amount of detail closer to the viewer. So we are the viewer in this scene. Let's go ahead and make sure we leave off with really letting the light do the work here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll go switch up to my inking tool. This is my fine line tool, and now I can really have fun putting in the really heavy details on these shadows. So we just want to be paying attention to places that have more detail. So just the way the light is hitting it, it's giving us more information. And then places that are falling off into the dark, they kind of lose the information. We don't know what's happening as it falls off into the dark. So here's a great example. We've got this place where it falls off, and I've got the most information right before we completely lose it, and we don't know what is happening in the darkness. There's lots of subtle things happening on this face. I can kind of use the shadows to carve into the stone, try and match my reference a little better. So you could treat every one of these like an individual rock separately and really make sure that we're defining every single one of the places where the stone rises up out of the darkness to catch the light. Okay, one last check at our reference here, and then we'll speed things along. I'll go ahead and I'll put in a little touches of color and make sure that I don't leave out any of these great details, like the light that's kind of creeping up here to the top. Okay, out at the art cave, drawing in the dark. We'll be back with more.